Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, it's supposed to be good morning, bedbreads and sleepyheads. I am a sleepy day. I am a sleepy boy on a sleepy day. First of all, congratulations, Cobalt, Syrinx, and Brian for first, second, and third, respectfully. Hello, Cobalt. Hello, Syrinx. Hello, Brian. Hello, Luna D. Luna D, thank you so much for the resubscription. Hello, Pepthread. Thank you so much for the bits. Much appreciated. I think I caught everybody. I hope. And also, congratulations on a side note, Brian, for making off like a bandit. Sorry, I'm a very tired lad right now. So it's probably not going to be a very long... it's not going to be a super long book club stream. I can't even words right now. It's gonna be a stream today. But still, we finished another book. Well, hopefully some of us finished another book. I finished the book about 2 hours ago. So I guess kind of a little bit of like a backstory to myself to some degree. Reading and writing disability, dyslexia, ADHD, a lot of things that are very detrimental to reading at a decent pace. So I made it about halfway through the book, roughly. And then a friend of mine mentioned, hey, did you know that Spotify has the Terry Pratchett books, as audiobooks? And I'm like, what? Yeah, you can just use those. And I'm like, and I will. So I restarted the book through an audio medium. Listened until I got to the part that I was at, and then realized that I can't really retain a lot of information by just listening to it. So I did what I used to do when I was a kid. I listened to the audiobook while having the book in front of me and having it basically read out loud. And because of that, I retained a lot more of the book, which unfortunately was one of those, over the weekend I had something to do, and then most of my Sunday was non-existent as well. So it was basically wow, I gotta do a lot of reading / listening in the next couple of days, or in basically a day. I think I listened to, I think it was 6 hours of audiobook today, to make sure that I was actually ready for it. Congratulations, Brian. Those sound like some pretty good finds. Ugh. Sorry. Also have some tea. Forgot to grab water because I'm very smart, but we're gonna make it through this. Dang it. I have notes. They're very scantily written notes. There's barely anything there, but there is something there. Mostly just parts of the book that I really liked. But for those who haven't read the book... Oh, also, just on a side note, I think I mentioned on one of my streams that I was getting these warnings during my streams from, ASMR videos, which made no sense. Turns out that some person, we're going to say person, took some audio from a ASMR person and made a short video of it with no video besides a still image. And then they took some audio from that one copyright-free jazz that I like to listen to when we're doing art or when we're doing this. And basically made that video, by the look of it, for the sheer purpose of creating a copyright nightmare, even though it's completely unjustified. So we can't listen to the 3-hour jazz thing anymore, because it gives me a bunch of warnings, and then if I ever leave any markers on it, because it gets unpublished, it removes all those markers, as well as all the markers of where people clip stuff, which makes it just an absolute nightmare to go back and try to grab things. So no more jazz for the sheer purpose of convenience, which is really, really annoying, but it is what it is. You know, as they say, yes, that is still going to get used in the... Thank you for reminding me, person who reminded me of this. I completely forgot. We need to get rid of some things. Because those can't be active right now. Those can't be active. That can't be active. That can't be active. We don't do those, and we don't do the exercises, and we don't do that one, and we don't do that one. We can still do that one. We can't do that one. Okay, that should all be good. Sorry, had to make sure I did that because otherwise everything goes to heckorino because I can't do those particular things at the moment. And hello, Spark Tank. Need a book in your lap. That's too much work. The books are on the shelves. They're just unfortunately behind the chat at the moment, so you can't see them. Actually, hold on. Let me remove that for a second. Which one is it again? There. There's all the books. Including the tall, thin one, which is the book that we read this month. And yeah, okay, so talking about books so that we actually get on with it, as it were. I was really glad that I did do the... And hello, Bearer of Peace. Thank you for stopping by. I'm really glad that I did the both audiobook and read situation, because, like, there were notable parts of the book that, like, I kind of just misunderstood because, like, my brain has a really hard time reading cadence. So when the audiobook was being read with cadence, it was like, oh, I, like, very much misunderstood this particular scene or that particular scene, or how to say it, like, the significance of this, or I misread a particular part, which was like, oh, this is completely different to what I thought that it was. So I'm really glad that I did it that way. But for those who haven't read the book, Guards is a book by Terry Pratchett set in the Discworld universe, I guess. I don't know which storyline it is, but it's basically completely on its own story. And it essentially follows of several characters over the course of a story about the sudden appearance of a dragon in a city that is kind of just a parody of, like, crappy cities with crappy people in it. It was a genuinely fun book. Like, right up front, like, I'll say that it's I'll say that it was like a 4 out of 5 for me, like, from just, like, an enjoyment perspective. Like, I liked the book a lot. It's fun, it's silly, it's written in a very, like, how to say it? It's written in a very fun and British humored way. It has a similar to, what is the name of that other writer? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy guy. Is that Adams? I think it's Adams. I can't remember his first name off the cuff now. What the heck is his name again? 1 second. Hitchhikers. Douglas Adams. It has a similar feel to Douglas Adams, where there's just, like, this comedicness to it. Like, a really good example that I remember in the book is, and this is, like, minor spoilers, but, like, a dragon shows up at one point. Wow. If you look at any of the book covers, you can see that there's going to be a dragon. But there's this scene that is particularly, like, it's written very tensely. you know, like, one of the main characters is, like, literally looking down the barrel of, like, a dragon's face. And it's, like, a very tense moment. And, like, the head is described as, like, the head was as tall as a man. And then the next line is, its eyes were the size of very large eyes. And I was like, damn it, Pratchett! Way to make this like really tense scene immediately silly. Like, still tense, but silly. Because there's never really a point in the book where Pratchett doesn't take the piss out of stuff. Like, that's the best way to describe it. Like, even in the tense moments or in the inspiring moments, there's always something kind of ridiculous. Also, I was surprised by how many movie references were in this book. I only caught 2 of them. And I'm not a movie buff, so I would be very amused to at one point find out, like, how many movie references were actually in this book. Like, there's a, oh god, what's it called again? I think that's a Dirty Harry reference. There was a Casablanca reference. No, there were 2 Casablanca references in there, actually, now that I think about it. Huh. Sorry, I'm just randomly pondering, just like, oh wait, no, there's 2 Casablanca references in there. Heck you, Pratchett. Well done for making me think about movies that I've only seen once a long time ago. But yeah, I don't know how to approach this. Because, like, there's not really much in the way of themes in the book. I mean, there's themes. There's always themes. But the themes are, like, traditional superstition versus reality. But it's set in a fantasy book. So, superstition is reality. You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of a thing. But no. It's very good. Would recommend watching it. Or recommend reading it. Need more tea. But I think I'm just going to go straight into spoilers at this point. Because there's not really any other way to approach it. Thank you, by the way, Brian. I appreciate that. Boop. Going to immediately activate spoilers. Because, like, you can't really talk about this book without just immediately going into spoilers. Okay, so 1. Favorite character in the entire book is the librarian. For those who have read it, you probably understand why. For those who haven't read it, the librarian is an orangutan who is smarter than most people in the book, and he only says 2 words, quote unquote, in the entire book. Ook and eek. Those are the only things he says. And it's just really fun when, you know, like, these characters are, like, trying to, like, interact with him. And they're just like, well, what is it that you're trying to say? Ook, you don't say. But, like, no idea what he's talking about. But again, like, he's like a genuinely smart character that nobody is allowed to, nobody is allowed to mention anything about. Like, nobody mentions that the librarian is a monkey. It is established pretty early on in the book that you do not call him a monkey because it makes him lose his mind and get very violent. And apparently grabs people by the ankles, lifts them above the heads, and then just slams their head into the ground. Again, he's a freaking fantastic character. Just, like, genuinely my favorite character. He's also connected to, like, this really crazy thought process in the book called L-Space, where essentially the idea is that libraries are magical. And, like, they're designed in a way that in theory they go on forever. Like they're just like these spaces where just what was it? The idea is how did it go again? Mass equals energy, energy equals power, power equals something. I don't remember the thought process there, but essentially the idea is with like so many books in one place, it like distorts reality. And they call it L space. At one point, the orangutan, while they're trying to figure out this whole mystery thing, like there's like 3 or 4 stories basically happening simultaneously. Like, you know, like one group of characters is doing one thing, another group of characters is doing another thing, and then the orangutan is like, he like ties some string to like his desk and then walks into the L space and just like journeys through like this insane, like he's gone for like a week into L space to do something that the reader does not know what to do until it finally tells you. And essentially the whole summary of the orangutan story arc is no. Dude, you were about to get... my mouse is hovering over the ban right now. Appreciate the thought process. Would not recommend doing that to people because there is a very good chance you're going to get banned. The minute anybody sees any .com, like, that is a, like... Most people at this point are trained to just not even ask questions, instant ban. But hello, Froggy. Or sorry, Miss Froggy. Where are my manners? The orangutan story is essentially somebody steals a book from the library. Nobody really cares that the book is stolen. The orangutan tries to get people involved. They kind of understand that there's an importance to it. And then essentially he goes, fine, I'll figure it out myself. Goes into L space so deeply that he goes back in time a week and sees who stole the book and where the book went. And then has to, like, go back through the ordeal and come back and be like, I know the things now. Except he doesn't tell you who it is because he's an orangutan and can't talk. So you're having just this wonderful little adventure of this orangutan, like, breaking the laws of space and time. Only for it, like, to only kind of matter. I mean, it does matter. He helps near the end of the book. But it's one of those things where it's more just like, it felt like Pratchett was just having a fun time having, you know, just like exploring this silliness. Granted, I haven't read any of the books. I know that this isn't the first book he read, so there is a chance that this is a giant reference to one of his other books that I'm just not aware of. But orangutan, the librarian, definitely the big thumbs up character. I think he was really neat. Also, he saves Vimes later, making him just a good boy. Just good boy. Hold on, let me look at my notes real quick. Oh god, how's that line go again? I hate that I put my notes in point form, always assuming, has anybody else experienced this where you leave yourself a note and it's a vague note because of course you'll remember? How could you forget? And then a few hours later you look at it and you're like, I have no idea what I was trying to write here. So now I'm in that situation a little bit. I just know that the I never know how to say this darn word. the like ruler of the city, and it starts with a P. The Patrian? I think it was like the Patrian? The Patarian? The Patipim? I can't words. Words are difficult. Hold on, let me see if I can find the word really quickly. Characters of guards, because I have been hearing that darn thing. Yes, him. What is the... Oh god, now I need to figure out how the heck to say this word. Ah, brain, you're so much fun. The patrician, that's how you're supposed to say it. That's it. Yeah, the problem bearer of peas is I can look at that word all day and I'll have no idea how to say it, because dyslexia is fun. And also the English language is cruel. The patrician. The patrician at one point is sitting, I think this is where Vimes and the patrician are sitting together in a cell. There's just this moment where Vimes is trying to convince him that there's like an importance. And basically the patrician responds with like, well, if it's such, if the way you're describing it, it sounds like this is a need of yours, not of mine. Basically just saying sounds like an ish you, not an ish me. And I just thought that was really funny. I mean, there's lots of really good little jokes here and there in the book that I just... I'll be danged if I can remember it. But, like, that one really stood out to me. Just such, like, a... Because the patrician is this character that's just, like, designed to be, like, just really good. Yeah, exactly. He's very mob boss coded, but in, like, the most, like... chill kind of way is the only way that I can describe it. He's the ruler of the city, and the only reason he is because he's so silver-tongued and aware of how humans work that people don't even bother trying to take his position of power away, because they're too busy being pitted against each other by him. Like, there's a joke in the book that talks about how, where he himself says, just like, oh yeah, there've been some attempts on my, you know, on my position of power. Heck, half of them I was involved in. Because he's just so good at, like, calculating ahead of time that he's just like, no, I'm gonna be fine because I can see how everything works, while also being like one of the most boring people. Like, his like experience of like fine dining is like a glass of water and a slice of bread. His idea of fun is reading reports. I believe the line in the book goes, what is it? He spent most of his nights reading reports, and, if he was feeling particularly excitable, playing some chess. Like, you know, he's just one of those guys where, like, his whole life just revolves around being in charge and making sure that things are working properly. I do appreciate, too, that because of him, there's now a thieves guild and an assassins guild. Like, he basically did the idea of, was like, well, there's a lot of criminals on the street because this city is pretty shitty. What if we make a guild that governs, like, of thieves that governs itself? Like, theft is always going to be a thing, but if we put a hierarchy to it, it will control itself. And then it does. Which I think is just such a wonderful approach to things, you know, where he's just like, well, this is just a city of criminals. Let's regulate it. And then they do, because that's just how people work in the eyes of Terry Pratchett, which I really, really appreciated. And of course, you know, the Assassin's Guild as well, just being assassins. Let me keep looking for a second. Seems like an ultra. I mean, yes. I mean, there's so much Britishness to that particular book, Bearer of Peas. Like, there's just so much to that. Like, how to say, the humor of it, the general view of the world. Wow, an actual bot. Bye, bot. Miss Froggy, you made me do a double take. How could you? Normally I'm so confident, but now I have to question everything. Well done. You've added a brand new approach to my mind, and it'll take a while before I figure out how to unlearn it. But yeah, like, I love the fact, too, that it's like... Oh, sorry, it's gonna be a really rough time with this book club. I did a lot of socializing on the weekend, so my social batteries are drained. Slept like crap yesterday, and then this morning my upstairs neighbor decided, like, today is the day that I'm not just going to be semi-noisy, I'm going to be loud at 6 a.m. I went to bed at 4 a.m. trying to get through as much of my book as possible, so I am quite tired right now. So if I suddenly just have a moment where I'm just in the middle of talking and just go, just know that it's because my brain just doesn't have enough fuel to continue the thought. Oh, I also like, of course, like the Grimes and Ramskin situation where, like, they have a really great back and forth where there's like a little bit of romance, but like, or like there's kind of a hint at romance, but like it's implied that Vimes at one point got like his mind ruined by a woman, so he's like perpetually like not okay with dealing with women. Meanwhile, Ramskin is like, how to say it, like, I guess she's supposed, because she was tied to the rock, so she's technically supposed to be a maiden. But, like, she's also just, like, this mountain of a woman, which I just appreciated the heck out of. Like, she's just this noble lady who just spends all her time, like, raising, like, small swamp dragons, who is just perpetually described as, like, dramatically large. Like, what is it? At one point, she's wearing clothing, and it's described as that she's wearing the amount of cloth that could create several sails. I think at one point they described her standing up as watching continental drift in reverse. Like, just describe her as just like this, just massive being of a person. And it just makes it so wonderful that, like, she has this incredible way of authority, but, like, she never really, like, gets violent. Like, there's a couple of times where she's, like, trying to protect her dragons, because, you know, like, there's this big dragon going around, like, doing damage to the city, so naturally the common folk, being who they are, start a mob and are just like, we're here to kill all your dragons, and she's just like, fucking try it. And then everybody else is kind of like, well, we're gonna do it. And she, like, brandishes, like, a pitchfork. And then basically, they're like, what are you gonna do? And she's like, well, you know, I'm not actually gonna hurt anybody, because that's not what I do, but I'm thinking about it. Which actually leads to one of the scenes of one of the really good movie references, where Vimes happens to be in the house with her during this and is holding one of the swamp dragons. There's a whole story, or a whole section of this book is dedicated to explaining the inner workings of dragons, which is fascinating to me. But essentially, like, real swamp dragons are these tiny little things that are so prone to sickness, disease, and self-combustion that, like, it's a miracle that they still exist. But because of that, they also erratically breathe fire. So Vimes is holding one of the dragons like a gun. Like, he has it under his arm and is holding the head like the barrel of a shotgun, essentially. And he gives the Dirty Harry, like, you came in here being all smug and confident, but you just have to ask yourselves one question. Do you feel lucky? And I just read that and was just like, wow, that is like, if there was going to be a movie reference, this is a great scene of just this city guard or one of the watch holding a dragon like a shotgun and being like, do you feel lucky, punks? Great scene, 10 out of 10, no notes. They even do the very specific thing that I was saying earlier, where even in like tense moments, there's a ridiculousness where at one point he steps out and he forgot about the fact that he's wearing a pair of Lady Ramskin's slippers, which are pink. So he's like standing there holding this dragon while having just a pair of like pink slippers with like these big pom-poms on top, immediately killing all of his intimidation. But then the shift in that little moment is that the dragon burps and like there's a big puff of like fumes and such, and everyone's all of a sudden like, oh, like he can do something with it. But then they describe it as how Vimes was also caught off guard and startled, but he was faster to get his poker face back on to actually continue being intimidating. And that's the only reason that the people like leave, is because they didn't see him flinch. So he's just like, that was just a warning shot. The next one's going to be aimed lower. And they're like, well, we could just leave. And then I think the other two, which were both Casablanca, was when the dragon shows up for the first time that it sticks around for a bit. Vimes drops the line, like, in all the cities in all the world, and it had to show up in mine. And then the other one was, when at the very end of the book, him and Lady Ramskin are having a dinner together. And it's an implication that they're starting to actually move their romance forward. Finally, at the very end. And she kind of says something that's pretty much a proposition of just like, we could be an item. And Vimes responds with, here's looking at you, kid. Which again is a Casablanca. Is near the end of the movie it's the line, but I think he says it halfway through the movie too. Not really important. Just me flexing my like tiny little movie buff muscle for just a quick second. But also just enjoying the fact that, like, I know that now. Like, I remember, this is a little bit of a tangent, but, like, it's the same with, like, The Simpsons. The Simpsons I had that with The Simpsons once or twice, where they would make a reference to, like, an old movie. And I'd just be like, well, I presume that's a reference. And then, like, years later, watch the movie, and then happen to come across that episode again and be like, oh, I have a brand new respect for this scene now, because like there's a weight behind it that I wasn't aware of. And like that happened in the scenes in the book too, where it was just like, oh, fascinating. So yeah, It's a good book. I'm probably only gonna like talk about it a little bit more, and then we'll just tap out there because I am a sleepy lad. But like, again, like, I genuinely do think this was a really good book. I enjoyed it. My only real criticism was that certain parts started feeling a little bit Tolkien-esque, where he would start kind of going on about like parts of the city, for instance, and he would like do a big description thing. And I know that he's trying to paint a picture, but there were points where it was very, you know, the Holy Grail, get on with it situation, where it was very much just like, I get it, the city's on fire, the river is made out of sludge, you know, they're trying desperately to try and put the city out, and he's like describing like how it's all going along, and there's just this point where I'm like, I have already visualized it twice and you're still talking, you know, like that kind of an idea. There were only a couple of parts in the book like that, which I can say confidently won't actually cause a bother, but there was definitely I can distinctly remember 2 parts, and one of them was the description of like the palace / castle / keep, where they're describing how much damage had been done to it. And I'm just like, I get it. It's like mostly in ruin, or the inside is mostly in ruin. Like, keep going. And the other one was, like I said, when they're describing the city, when they're trying to put the fires out. And I'm like, yeah. That's great and all. I already see it all. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of references I was supposed to as a child to things that I couldn't understand. Very much so, Bearer of Peas. Very much so. I think that's really the only complaint. I was about halfway through the book when I was like, okay, who is the Supreme Grand Master? Just for context, I'll summarize it really quickly. The Supreme Grand Master is this hooded figure that we don't really know who they are, but they're the reason that the big dragon exists. He gets a bunch of idiots together into a secret society in order to summon dragons. And eventually they summon a dragon with the whole purpose, on a side note, so that a king or king in the making will show up, defeat the dragon, aka they'll unsummon it, he'll become king, and then the king will need an advisor, wink wink. And that's where the Grand Supreme, the Grand Supreme Master will take up his position. You know, like he'll have this, he'll basically puppet the king is the idea. The problem is when he summons this dragon multiple times, the dragon itself starts getting a taste for being in the world. And basically, because dragons are quite cunning and smart, it reminded me a little bit of, what was the name of that movie? Was it Jumper? I think it was Jumper. The idea that, like, when you summon, you kind of leave, like, some threads between the 2 planes of existence. And basically the dragon was like, okay, I'm going to follow those threads and force my way into the world. So after, after the big show of just like, oh, we have a king now, the dragon shows up again. And I'm sitting there like, who in the hell would be the Supreme Grand Master? The only one I can think of that would make sense to some degree is the guy under the patrician, whose name for some reason I can't remember, which I'm really irritated about. Oh, what is his name again? Started with a W and his last name started with an L. Hold on, let me see if I can find the name here somewhere. Oh, sorry, it's the opposite. It's Lupine. Lupine specifically. There we go. I was like, it has to be Lupine, unless it's a completely different character that we know nothing about. Because I know Lupine is, like, fine with his position, but he doesn't have a lot of power. And therefore, it stands to reason that he might potentially move up in the world. Because there's a reference near the beginning of the book that talks about how Vimes didn't have ambition when he was younger, whereas Lupine did. Lupine had ambition. And that was basically the only thing I had going for me. And then lo and behold, it turns out he was the Supreme Grandmaster, which was just like, yes! Ha! And then he ends up dying, which is also great. Again, lots of great characters as well. Carrot was a great character. A human who was raised by dwarves, who just... Dwarves don't do metaphors. So because of that, Carrot doesn't know metaphors. So literally the bad guy dies because Vimes tells Carrot to throw the book at him. Because Carrot has a book of laws. And Carrot's like, sure thing, sir. And then, again, for those who haven't read the book, Carrot is described as his name isn't Carrot because of his hair. It's the shape of his body. There is a sentence in the book that describes him perfectly. When he flexes his shoulder muscles, other muscles have to move out of the way. Like, he is just this Hulk of a character. And then he throws, like, a book of laws at this guy. And basically it hits him in the forehead. And he stumbles back because they're on, like, the edge of, like, part of the ruins of the castle, and he just falls 5 stories and dies. Carrot's a great one. Vimes was definitely a really great character. Colon was a great character. Nobby, I really liked Nobby, but I liked to be annoyed with Nobby, if that makes sense. Because Nobby is supposed to be like this, like, small, gross, like, rat, like, kind of rat-faced character who is just somehow also, like, one of the City Watch for some reason, which kind of makes sense because it's described that the City Watch is basically a bunch of people who don't have positions anywhere else and nobody likes the Watch. But yeah, I like Nobby because he's, like, very, he's very, like, the everyman to some degree. I also like the fact that, like, all the characters have, like, a thing about them. Like, Carrot is no metaphors and, like, doesn't know fear. Vimes is the character that gets a lot of character growth over the course of the book, where, like, he starts out as basically an alcoholic and still really likes to drink, but, like, becomes more of a hero-esque character. Colon is, like, this super heavy guy, but is, like, a relatively decent person who also has a marriage that only survives because he works during the night and she works during the day, and they've been, like, married for 10 years, and their whole dynamic is they leave each other notes, and, like, he gets the tea ready for her when he goes to bed so that her morning tea is ready. And she, before she goes to bed, makes breakfast for him just before she goes to bed. And that's how they've had this successful marriage. Nobby is this character who is, yeah, absolutely Bearer of Peace. Nobby is this character who's kind of like simultaneously the everyman, who is part thief, part wizard, in the sense of he's this guy who can just, a low artificer. He's this guy who, the way they describe it in the book is, whenever he gets a hold of a cigarette, it almost immediately becomes a dog end, as in, like, it becomes an almost completely smoked cigarette. And then he just hides it behind his ear. Like, he almost always has a dog end behind his ear. that like nobody really sees. So he like always has like a partially smoked cigarette on his person at like all times. And he's also just like, he's like a pretty rational character, but just also like, again, like he's like part thief. So he's like constantly like being kind of a smart ass and being like, yeah, sometimes we just like to go out and check doors to see if they're open, you know, with the hint of, well, I mean, if it's open, that means we're allowed inside and help ourselves to whatever it may be. But yeah, no, it was, I did, like I said, enjoyed all the character. I'm missing a character right now. Oh, excuse me. There's the 4 guards. So there's Vimes, Nobby, Colon, and Carrot, sorry. There's the librarian. There's the patrician. There's Lupin. There's Lady Ramskin. Am I missing a major character? I genuinely can't think if I'm missing another major character. I think that's most of the major characters. There's like a couple of like extras, like the, how to say it, the secret. Oh my god, cut me own throat. That's right. I freaking hated that dude in like the best kind of way, you know? Cause he's just this character, yeah, there's literally just, he is the stereotypical, like, sleazy merchant. Like, his name is literally, like, most people call him Throat. And his whole thing is just like, I have this new thing, like, it's literally snake oil salesman style. You know, just like, oh, you could get one of these, and I'll give it to you for $3, and that's cutting me own throat. You know, like, I'm doing you a service right now. You mentioned Vine's getting development. I haven't read a lot, but later on, there's the Vimes. Really? Oh, he does get more attention. Oh, so he must keep going in terms of that book series. And thank you for the lurk, Solarcy. Much appreciated. That's exciting. I might have to at one point get to some of the other books. I don't know yet, by the way, what we're reading this month. I need a day or two to ponder on it. On a side note, if anybody wants to join the book club, if you should be so inclined, you can go to the Discord, and when you go to the rules section, there is a little blue book that you can click on, and it will lead you to the secret book club, where we talk about the books and we announce which books we're going to read next and all that, and you can recommend books if you have any, etc., etc. I'm always in the mood for looking for a new book, because gosh dang it, it's been years since I last read something. So this year I'm dedicating my year to at least 12 books being read. Gosh dang it. Even if it kills me. The other day I was chatting with somebody and they're just like, well, you know, like if you don't finish the book, you don't finish the book. And I'm like, that's not what I can do. I'm the book club leader. I have to finish the book, whether I enjoy the book or not, which is how I felt about Lord of the Flies, where it was just like, oh, good God. All right, let's finish this darn thing. No offense to the people who like the book. It just didn't... Oh, excuse me, just didn't land with me in particular. I think that's basically all I wanted to say. Like I said, 4 out of 5 was a very fun book. If you like that kind of British humor, you know, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy sort of thing, you'll probably like this book. It's a fantasy version of it, but it's good. There's a lot of just strange way to describe things, and how to say, like, it does actually wonderful world building, and there's a lot of like crisscrossing of things. Oh, that's one thing that I wanted to mention. Near the very beginning, or fairly close to the beginning of the book, when they start summoning dragons, a big thing about it is that the Brotherhood needs to bring magical items, because magical items are what summons the dragon, because the dragon requires magic to sustain itself. And one of the brothers there brings this thing that he bought from Cut Me Own Throat, which was like an alligator repellent charm, which once they summon the dragon, all of their magical items basically turn to dust. And then later you find out that that character was like horrifically mauled by an alligator. And the first time that I made it halfway through the book, I didn't register that, which is why I'm so glad that I did the audiobook afterwards and was just like, oh, that's cheeky. That's a cheeky, fun, and silly little joke where it's just like, oh yeah, one of the brothers didn't show up. Oh, didn't you hear? He was attacked by an alligator. And then you think back to the fact that when the first time they put magical items, the closest thing to a magical item that was really put in there was this charm that brother brought. And I just thought that that was a great little joke. Just like, ah, well done, Pratchett. That was good. Oh, also that there's just, this is the final thing. The book implies that death always shows up for people. There are, I think, 3 or 4 deaths in the book where death shows up and takes people away. And it's implied that death is very much the Grim Reaper, but he's a very just like understanding and calm character. You know, like one of the characters, like this character that has really nothing to do with anything. Like he is a throwaway character who dies the first time from a dragon. And he just kind of goes like, oh, I didn't think that this would be, you know, I thought that this would be painful. And then he sees death and he's just like, oh, like, I didn't think you'd show up. And he just goes, I always show up. And it's like, no, I mean, like, I thought you'd just send somebody for someone like me. He's like, I always show up. You know, like, I'm always there. And then he just gets, just like gently takes the guy away. Like he's just like this reasonable force of the universe. And it's just like, I appreciate that. Death is an amazing character. I look forward to one day diving into this book series, Artificer, and actually get to like bite more into it. But we're not going to do another Terry Pratchett book specifically because like I can't do the next one because that would be rude to everyone else. Because, you know, anybody who's coming in for the first time, I can't be like, well, we're reading book 2. So I hope you can read fast because you'll have to read 2 books to catch up. And I don't want to start on another Terry Pratchett book because that's just a dumb rule that my ADHD brain has decided. So I will eventually, probably in the next like 2 days, maybe 3 days, I'll figure out what book we're going to read and I'll announce it on the Discord. And then my brain stopped for a second because I think that was supposed to be the end of the thought. But yeah, there you go. There's my general thought process on the book. I liked it. 4 out of 5. Good times. Would recommend to other people should they be interested in such sort of thing. And yeah, I could feel myself tanking out something fierce. So I think this is where we're going to stop for the day. I will be rating us out in a hot second. And I think I know who we're already rating. Yeah, I never get to rate Herb. And though he's currently in the BRB screen, we're still gonna raid him. Because that's fun. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do right now. Like I said, I'm incredibly brain dead. I never realize how much of an introvert I am until I go to a party once a year. And then the next day, I'm like, I feel like I just ran a mental marathon. Let that be a lesson to you, introverts. If you get invited to a party, don't. Just kidding. Absolutely go to a party. Be social. It's good for you. But all right, everybody, let's give ourselves a really quick a thinger right there. There's all my socials if you would like to partake in any of them. No pressure, of course. And we're going to go ahead and raid Observer Herb, who is a mostly puzzles. He does a mixture. He is a like an actual face streamer who does a mixture of puzzle games and music creation and game development and like software development. He wrote his own program for his streaming stuff. I don't know how to describe that right now because I'm just too gosh darn brain dead. Thank you, Brian, and thank you for being here. And thank you, everybody, for being here and showing up. I know that this is not like the usual content that I do, but I'm determined to at least read 12 books this year. And gosh dang it, that's what we're going to do. Even if I'm the only one, I'll do it. Oh, also, if you are not interested in reading the book, like I said, Spotify has it on audio, has it as an audiobook, and the reader of that audiobook is wonderful voice. And does voices for all the characters. Repeats a couple of them because there's a lot of characters, so I don't how to say it, I don't judge in any way. But yeah, would recommend. Hold on, I'm just checking to see if Herb is back or not. He's not back yet. When did he do it? Hold on, let me give a quick yell in there. I'm gonna go ahead and just blast his frickin' stream with music. For context, Herb is a lovely lad who, for his regulars, will sometimes make intro things for them. So for me, if I enter, I get a song that plays, and I'm just super excited that that's the case because it's a great song. For those who don't know it, it's Fine Print. I don't remember the name of the band or the group that makes it, but it's very good. Would recommend. Okay, well, he's not there for a second, so you know what? We're gonna go anyway. We'll make him get startled by a raid. If you guys, of course, need to do things, by all means do so. Don't feel obligated to stick around. I know that we're all busy. We have things to do. We have lives to live. Oh, also, for those who are celebrating it, happy Canada Day. All right. Observer Herb. All right, everybody. So we are going to go ahead and rate Observer Herb. If you are subscribed, please use the top rates message. If you are not subscribed, please use the bottom rate message. And with that, everybody, thank you so much for sticking around. Whether you were chatting, whether you were lurking, or whether you just popped in and out for a moment, know that you were super appreciated. I hope that you guys are having a great day, afternoon, evening, or night, whatever time it happens to be for you. I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves. I hope that you're drinking plenty of water. And when you finally do sleep, whatever time it have to be for you, I hope that you have a very restful sleep. 9 people. Thank you guys so much for being here. As you can tell, I'm slowly losing my voice. I hope that I recover it by the time that we stream tomorrow. I'm supposed to do advertisement for something right now for my own thing, but we'll leave that till tomorrow when I have a bit more energy. Hopefully we get some sleep tonight. And I hope that you guys get some sleep tonight. If I don't see you guys again this week, I hope that you have a great rest of your week and subsequent weekend. And if I do, well, then I will see you when I see you. So until then, bye-bye for now.